those who are involved in making it come to life. Join us as we go behind the door.
Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Door with the Grey Rooms podcast. I'm your host, Brooks Bigley, and with me tonight is the author of Season 3, Episode 6, Arthur Unk. Arthur got a fresh oil change and is firing on all cylinders with this one. How are you this evening, Arthur?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Brooks.
Oh, that's excellent. I am doing fantastic as well. Why are we doing fantastic? What did we just discover that we both enjoy together?
I think it's our love of peanut butter whiskey, mainly the screwball origin.
Isn't that amazing? Yes. It's the best whiskey on the planet. I'm not trying to push alcohol here, but hey, we're all stuck at home and we've kind of got our vices, so whatever. As long as you're safe with your vice.
And I'm going to push this out there just real quick. If anybody's listening, adult content may follow. I've been under a lot of stress. I'm not responsible for the things that come out of my mouth. So you've been warned.
This is a horror podcast, so I feel like anything said goes. So thank you for the. We'll even add an explicit tag in the show notes just because you said that. So, Arthur, welcome. We haven't seen you since season 1, and you wrote like the just most pure. I want to say season 1 classic for us. Like everybody always references Ice Station Bravo.
Oh, absolutely! It was one of my crowning achievements that got me started on my whole writing career. So absolutely.
I mean, Ice Station Bravo was like this just massive horror soap opera of things happening and characters and nuance. I mean,
it was written under the premise of mirroring the movie The Thing. So it actually falls more into the realm of sci-fi, because in my first original draft of it, what disrupted the project, and through the miracle of editing, a lot of the backstory got cut out and the action was what remained. I didn't know if this was going to be my first and last shot, so it was kind of like, you know how they say you throw everything in the kitchen sink? Yeah, I think Jason told me once that I melted his computer 3 times while he was trying to process all of it.
Well, don't you have tally for how many actors we had in that episode? It was very high. Oh,
it was in the double digits, and I think it still holds the record for largest cast to date. And also, it was the first time introduced an original song by the wonderfully creative Mike Lee. Oh my God, Mike Lee is my hero.
Yes, All in My Head. Oh man, that's like one of his only songs that's on Apple Music, and it's on one of my playlists, and I have listened to that song so many times that he must have so many royalties coming to him every month, because it's such a pure, great song.
I'll tell you what, I was a little apprehensive at first, kind of caught up in the bigness of all of it, and then when that transition into his song, because they kept that secret from everybody, and when I heard that, I was like, it's perfect. It's gold. It's good.
And did you ever hear from him? We did a Patreon bonus interview with Mike Lee where he talked about that song. Did you ever hear why he wrote that song or what that song was really about?
Yeah. Unfortunately, circumstance have kept me and Mr. Lee apart. But one day we are going to meet up, and I am buying all his beers so that we can talk.
I will let him tell you what the song is about then when you do meet up for those beers. I won't spoil it for you. But it's such a great song. I just love that crunchy garage rock. Just great song. So, hey man, having it in your story was a blessing.
Oh yeah, music is key to me writing, especially here lately. I mean, I have entire writing playlists created just to help keep my my subconscious occupied while I'm just throwing words down.
Well, then that's a great segue because if we now get into this current story here, the ride, even like 2 or 3 different times, your character references. Well, he's listening to classics on the radio. How does music factor into your writing?
Well, the story of the ride is very autobiographical in a way. So I always have been a huge fan of music across all genres: country, classical, EDM. I mean, I'm into underground rap right now and trap metal. So I mean, it's just my tastes are everywhere. But um, for this story, the original version of it was written at the same time as Ice Station Bravo. I wrote Ice Station Bravo first, and then I wrote this episode right after it, thinking that season one might need another story. And it was originally very, very different.
Of this story, but what was like your original idea for this story?
Well, the whole thing was I kind of wanted to do a horror comedy, which at the time, I don't even know if Tucker and Dale versus Evil came out, but definitely like Shaun of the Dead and stuff like that have, which are just, the epitome of good horror comedy. But basically, there's a joke, and it goes a little something like, I picked up a hitchhiker last night. He seemed surprised that I picked up a stranger, and he said, "Thanks. Why'd you pick me up? How do you know I'm not a serial killer?" I told him the chances of 2 serial killers in one car would be astronomical.
I've seen that one floating around on the internet a lot, actually, recently too. So that's karmic. So was that the seed idea for this, or?
That was definitely the seed idea because I am a father and I am a huge fan of dad jokes. The worse they are, the better. And that was just one of those things where it was just like, that's a little dark, but it's still a dad joke. So
Yeah, it totally is. Well, I mean, especially with this story, like you kind of push, like me as a listener, you pushed me back and forth. I would oscillate between like, okay, clearly he's gonna be some kind of killer, and I mean, right off the bat, we already know that. But with the introduction of the hitchhiker that your character picks up, like I just knew, okay, this is the gray rooms, like something is gonna be not fully what meets the eye. Like there's, like you said, there's going to be a possibility of the two serial killers meeting each other here. Like I just knew that something was off, based on your character just was not full of too many words, but what he would say was just very ominous. But I love how because you get the inner monologue basically of your character. So it's almost like a detective story, kind of like we know he's a killer, we know he's up to no good, and he's claiming his allegiance to some kind of other demon here, Azeroth. But he's also trying to figure out this hitchhiker, because even he is like, something's not right with this hitchhiker, but never.
well, yeah, that's kind of where like the comedy part comes in, because it's like, well, we're getting down to the wire here for what he needs to do. It may not be the ideal situation, but this is the most available person. So, you know what? Let's go for it. I'm going to make it happen. It's just that confidence, that ego, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. And he's just like, you know what? Fuck it. This guy's it.
Right, and your character has so much ego, but it's not like a negative ego. It wasn't it didn't seem like a he just seemed like he was just enjoying life, albeit negatively, but he was just like existing and enjoying life. He's just rolls off his tongue about all the bodies that he's got in the trunk and whatnot.
Well, one of the pillars of horror is whoever your character is, they got to have some redeeming feature. Nobody just wants to hear a story about a bad guy that's just bad for the sake of being bad. The character needs a motivation, but as we find out more towards the end of the story, which was just beautifully done by the voice actor, was it Justin McElroy? I think is what
Justin
his name was.
McElroy.
McElroy,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
McElroy. He did just a beautiful job of portraying the character swing towards the end, because in the beginning he's just so brimming full of confidence and I got this and my life is set and nothing's going to bother me. I got this plan, and then by the end of it, his last words were, "Oh shit," and he's basically crying on the inside for his life as his soul is destroyed. He doesn't even exist. The universe just deletes him.
Yeah, can I just mention, like, I was floored by just that as the ending, because like you destroyed his entire soul. He went to a place even worse than hell. Like, that's some elder gods shit right there.
The only place worse than hell I can think of is being stuck on Chicago traffic on 294. So that's that's probably where I left him, where my mind was anyway.
Are you in the Chicago area? Is that why you say that?
I lived in the Chicago area for about 7 years, and dealing with the traffic in that city is a gray room all of its own because you can't escape it. And it is literally, you're like, I would rather be tortured.
Yeah, that sounds like its own gray rooms. Yeah, I live in the Bay Area of, near San Francisco, so we're notorious for having like the third worst traffic behind LA, I guess. So going back to the story, right? What exactly was kind of like your template? Like, you said you wrote this after you wrote Ice Station Bravo.
Yeah, well, I'm young in age, 40 years young, but I'm high mileage. So I've experienced a lot of things in my life. I've been deployed twice. I used to drive semis. I used to work, sold insurance and securities. I've had a wide variety of things that I've done in my life, and the stretch of highway between Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Flagstaff, Arizona, was on my route that I would drive when I drove semis, because that was also one of my jobs. And it was just, it was very impactful to me, like just being on the open road with nothing but the desert around me, listening to music, going down the highway. So it came from real life experience, and I have a specific truck stop in mind that I would always stop at in Albuquerque. And it's just, there was all these hitchhikers cloistered around the exit, and they'd have signs like California or trying to make it to Hollywood. And it was just a bunch of dirty, homeless looking people looking for rides from truckers. And I'm just like, yeah, I want to be murdered. No, thank you. And I would drive on.
So this is why you say that it's semi autobiographical, basically, because you actually, like, you didn't drive a car and pick up random hitchhikers, but you are familiar kind of with this whole situation of being on the open road and seeing strangers. Like, what was the sign that your character Mike held in the air, like going anywhere or something like that?
Yeah, it was another bad song reference, a road to anywhere. So it was just, there's just a whole bunch of bad references in this story.
Yeah, how many musical references? How many
I made
references did you
all
pepper
of
into
them.
this?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you go back and listen, you'll discover a new one each time. I mean, I even worked in, Hello Darkness, My Old Friend.
Right, right, right,
I
right, right.
worked in, everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your character John said something about that. Like, I caught that, in the end when Mike reveals himself as, I guess we're gonna go with, he was like an elder god or something of the sort. But even while dying and having his soul completely just torn apart.
Even while it was going through the crash scene, you hear him say this classic car went off the road. So he's still thinking in terms of, I don't know what's happening, something bad's happening, but his mind is trying to counter all these bad things by trying to push the familiar
Right,
onto
like
him.
trying to anchor onto something that makes sense, basically.
Yeah, because ultimately, my philosophy on why we're here, like what's the meaning of life, is we're put here to define the world around us. And when we encounter something that is just beyond our scope, something that we've never seen, the true unknown, our mind races to try and fill in those gaps with familiar things. That's why, like in stories in the Bible, you have, angels with 4 heads and lion bodies and 8 wings. And that's why we have chariots of fire and all that, because we didn't, the people that experienced these things that wrote them down didn't have any other words to describe it. So they had to use what vocabulary they had at the time.
Right. My father is very religious, and he also served in Vietnam. And he loves to describe in Revelation, or describe from Revelations, the description of, like, I don't know, I'm going to bastardize this clearly, but like the eagle with 2 heads that has lightning coming from its talons. And he loves to say, "See, Brooke, see, that's an example of back then they didn't know the words, they didn't know what a plane was, but they're describing a fighter jet that's flying through the air, and the second head is the pilot, and the lightning from the talons is the missiles shooting from the wings." It's really interesting how, as human beings, that's what we do. We try to familiarize ourselves with the unfamiliar by bringing in something we already know.
Yeah,
And
that's why I said, our purpose and our meaning for being here, at least to me, what I've experienced, is to define your world. And that's kind of when I started getting more into writing and literature and studying other cultures and things like that, you see evidence of it everywhere.
yeah. Even in your story, like you were saying about John, your main character, like he's trying to make sense of what's happening by bringing in what he knows, through his own anecdotal life to explain what's happening. And clearly, we don't typically meet elder gods on a daily basis, so. I got the gist that John was kind of like, because you don't fill us in on his backstory, like how did he get connected to Azeroth? Like what's the deal here? That doesn't even matter, because we're dropped into the scene of currently what's happening. He's on the road. He's got bodies in his trunk. Like, he's clearly on a mission. He's got a time limit. He needs to get something done. But I feel like you filled him with humanity, because he, to me, seemed like some guy that, like you said, he was very happy-go-lucky in the beginning, like, oh, yeah, I do this and I do that. But he just fell the fuck apart at the end when confronted by the actual thing that he may or may not really believe in. Like, who knows if he actually believes in Azeroth? We don't know that as a character. But shit, he was floored as hell when he actually met whatever Mike was.
Yeah, we'll call him, for future purposes, we'll just call him the elder god Rowett.
The, the elder god Gram Rowett. I love it. Yeah. I dig that.
But yeah, John, the character, is actually very loosely based on myself. Actually, some of the mannerisms that he has, for example, the horrible singing voice. You do not want me to sing anything. If you gave me $100,000 to spend on a vocal coach and a year to work on it, I would still sound just as bad.
But are you okay with that?
I am perfectly okay with that, because I can run a soundboard.
There you go. That's all that matters.
I will auto-tune the shit out of my voice, and
there you go.
Put a trap metal beat behind it. Yeah, I'll put my mixtape on SoundCloud later.
For there you go. We'll include links in the show notes. What exactly is trap metal, by the way? Because you brought it up several times now. Can you just really quickly tell us what trap metal is?
Basically, it's where kind of like a darker rap beat meets heavy metal. So these are your Suicide Boys, your Ghost Main, and artists in that vein.
Okay. I'm a huge kind of like you said, underground hip hop. I'm a big underground hip hop fan too. I gave up listening to rap on the radio a long time ago, but underground hip hop still sings to me. So now, when you wrote The Ride, did you have multiple revisions to make? Was this an easy job since you said it's kind of semi-autobiographical? Did it just pour out of you? Did you get from beginning to end quickly? Were there anything that you had to stop on, to rethink, to rewrite? Well, you did say that there was kind of a different version in the beginning, right?
Yeah, in the beginning, John was originally just a clueless guy picking up a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker was dropping hints left and right that, guess what, John, you about to die, and you don't even know it yet. And John was just completely oblivious, just lost in his own world, happy-go-lucky. But unfortunately, what I do is I take intrusive thoughts and turn them into stories. So intrusive thoughts could be like you're driving down the highway and all of a sudden you just think to yourself, I'm going to cross the median and just drive headlong into traffic.
There's a name for that, isn't there?
Yeah,
It's like staring into the void. There's some kind of phrase or what is
yeah,
it
and
called?
it escapes me at the moment, but for the majority of us, for the 99.9% of the world's population, we can keep those impulses under control. Like, oh, that's a weird thought, or ooh, I wouldn't do that. But then there's that real small sliver of the population that has very poor impulse control, and they go out and do horrible things. I'm surrounded in my real life job by people that just absolutely do horrible, despicable things. I mean, serial killers, murderers, drug dealers. I mean, it's just my job's pretty intense.
So you're a politician, is what you're saying?
Exactly, exactly. I'm on my
Uh,
fourth term.
oh man, we should have cut them at two, but whatever. Well, so yeah. Can you speak on that a little bit? Like, what, without revealing too much, what is your day job other than Batman?
Well, I'm a corrections officer, so I'm inside a prison more than I'm not inside of a prison here lately. I've been getting mandated a lot, so I did a uh, I did a 16-hour shift on Christmas Day. So yeah.
Ooh, what happens during Christmas to maybe bring any of the Christmas spirit to your clients, if you know what I mean?
Uh, Basically, I keep them safe, I keep them secure, and I keep them uh in the best spirits I can just by being firm, fair, and consistent.
Okay, okay. Now, does your interactions, on a daily basis or a weekly basis, does that ever kind of influence you in any of the stories that you write?
Absolutely. Whenever you hear me mention the void, that's usually me talking about where I work because it's just, I don't know if it's just prisons in general, but whenever you put a large collection of people who have done bad things in one spot, it carries with it a energy that is just, if you're not careful, it will suck the life from you, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself doing things or thinking things and you're like, that's not me. What's going on here? And it's just, it has its own energy and it's very dark and it can pull you down.
That's intense. Like, how do you prep, you know, before a shift, knowing that that could be the case, that you're kind of wading into quicksand almost that could pull you down at any point. Like, how do you navigate that on a daily basis?
Well, I rely a lot on life experience. Nothing can fully prepare you for what you see inside prisons, but you can choose how you deal with it. And for me, I make sure that my regular life is as stable as possible because you go into a place like that, any weakness you have, any insecurity, it's going to come out given enough time.
Yeah, there's such a psychological game being played, I guess, of these people are trying to scare you and trying to intimidate you, and there's more of them than there is of you.
They're trying to be friends with me and having their family members seek me out over social media and other scary things.
Oh, yeah, that's probably worse. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Oh, yeah, that's creepy. That's definitely 21st century right there.
Oh yeah. So, but work is work. It pays me very well. I made considerably more than I did last year. So 2020 hasn't been all bad for me.
There you go. there's a there's a positive. Well, then, in terms of writing, like what is kind of like your schedule then? Like when do you find the time to write, and like where do you put those writing efforts? Like into like what kind of writing do you put that into?
Uh, I find myself taking notes throughout the day. So I always carry a little notebook around with me. And if I ever get struck with an idea or a phrase, or if I hear or see something that just kind of maybe not, it strikes a chord with me, and if it's impactful enough for me to take notice, I write it down. And then later on, when I get home, I take a picture of it and I upload it to my Google Drive so I never lose it. And I just have all these pictures of notes. And whenever I choose to write a story, I just go back through. And if I read it again and I get some sort of feeling from it, it's like a potter. You see a lump of clay and you put your hands on it, you touch it, and then you start shaping it, and you go by feel. And you were talking about the development for the ride. One of the hardest things that I had to do was go through this editing process. That's why if you ever look in Discord, you'll usually see Arthur is in editing hell, because to me, if I ever make it to hell, if there is a hell, I'm going to be editing something. And uh my son is my best friend and harshest critic. He pulls absolutely no punches. And when I gave him the story to read, because I submitted the ride on like the very last day of submissions, just because of the editing, my son was like, "This don't make sense. This don't make sense. I don't like this guy. What's going on?" I'm like, you're telling me you don't like me." I didn't exactly come out and say that, but I was like, he's like, What's this guy doing? Why is he just doing stuff?" So I came across the absolute worst best horror movie of all time. It's called Anterum. You can find it on Amazon Prime. It is the absolute best worst horror movie of all time. And in it, I just took I was like, if this can be a movie, I can find a plot. I can make this guy something. And I borrowed some elements from that movie and I started shaping. That's where the demon lord Azeroth comes from, because that plays a central role in that movie. And I was like, well, what if he's just a guy that is trying to, please his dark lord? What if he's just like, not really an average guy, but just a guy with a big ego? Because, my ego can fill up a room. I don't know if you know that or not.
I wouldn't call it an ego, man. Yeah, you do not give me any sense of an ego. You're just a cool guy.
Oh, I'm definitely keep it in check. And when you say things like that, it breaks down the wall a little more.
Bring it out, man. Bring out that ego. Let's go.
But it's just like I had to make this guy relatable, because if your character in your story is not relatable on some level, it's a throwaway character. Nobody's going to remember it. So I gave him things like he's really into music. He likes this classic car. You know what I'm saying? It's probably a beat up old Oldsmobile that he's driving down the road, but to him, it's a classic. How many people out there are in love with their cars, or in love with something that other people think are worthless? But because there's even that little exchange between John and Mike where he was like, you sold apps to Google and this was all you could afford.
Right. A little dig. Well, yeah, and I love that because there's such a dichotomy here of he's right off the bat in the story. There's no wiggle room. You're just right off the bat like, I serve Azeroth and I do X, Y, and Z and I do this and that. So he's clearly going through something, but he's also a
It,
normal human being.
yeah, in literary terms, we just call that the exposition dump at the beginning so we can get to
Oh, of
the
course, of
story.
course, of course. Yes, yes, yes. That's the clinical answer here. But
We're just establishing who he is. Now
right,
let's see
right,
what he
right, right.
does.
You get the sense that he's doing whatever the hell he's doing. He's fighting whatever war he wants to fight. He's believing whatever he wants to believe, but he's still a human being at the end of the day. Like he's going to go to bed and still cry if something hurts, regardless of serving Azeroth or anything on the planet. So I feel like that humanness really brings it home to the average listener that allows you to say, hey, this character is just like me. I'm just like this character. And that's why we can vibe off of your story so well, because it's not just like this unattainable, like,
Yeah, it's kind of like I put a little bit of what we call that guy in there. Everybody knows that guy or that girl that's just like, man, this guy is kind of an ass. I don't really like him. Why is he walking around thinking, he's the shit? He don't know his job. He don't know how to do anything. So it's part me and it's part your prototypical dumbass that you work with. That person in the office that you're just like, who greenlit this tomfuckery? How did you even make it past screening, much less, you know, I want to see your resume.
yeah,
you know,
which
I want
happens
to
a lot more than we actually know. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and all those little elements, some of them are kind of subtle, but it's just you get that feeling, and then the portrayal of the character with Justin's portrayal of the character, he pulled it off because the way he just put the little nuances and twists on the voice, it was just you got that he sold my character. I'm like, this is way better than what I wrote it, and I'm like, I like this guy.
Well, he portrays the everyman that still is on a mission. Yeah, like I don't know. It's my own personal opinion. I did not feel like he was hoity-toity about anything. Again, like he wasn't like this edge lord that was just like, look at me in my my black flowing jacket and my glasses, and I've got a mission, and I'm going to save the world, and or I'm going to destroy the world. Like he just was like, yeah. I'm into classic cars and music. Also, I serve Azeroth.
Yep,
It's
it
just a
was.
very
Yeah, it's very laid back. It was kind of like he he just was a guy, and we all know that guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. You did great. Again, connecting the listener to the character, and it's so paramount to do. And I feel like a lot of times maybe characters too over the top. So like you kind of look up at the character and revere the character, but you can't necessarily understand the character or anyway. So yeah, you did a great
Yeah,
job. You
it
did a
was.
great job.
It was also my apology letter to Jason because Station Bravo. I kind of felt bad when I was going through the editing. I was like, you know what? Because I put a few other little minor characters in there, and I was like, no, I gave him like 35 characters last time. I'm just going to cut it down to 2.
There you go. Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, so Jason, if you're listening, that's my apology, buddy. I hope that one worked out for you.
Well, speaking of, what did okay, so what did you think? Like, here we go. We're gonna ask the typical questions here. What did you think of the production? Like, did we live up to how you wrote it when you finally heard it? Did it reciprocate back to you everything that you put into it?
It was when I first heard the story and that first note hit, because the original way I first heard it was when Cassie sent me the final cut. So there was no Beckett story or anything like that, and it was just my story. And when that first note hit, I was like, JM, you are a golden god. I love you. It was like he wrote his own story just to go along with mine in the music. And then I started thinking, oh shit, how are they going to do the singing parts? I was like, copyright. Oh fuck, can we do this? And then he just out of nowhere, you just hear it lightly in the background, him kind of just doing it on his own, but it's toned down, and I'm just like, I, I ain't saying that I swing this way, but JM, I'm telling you, you want to go out sometime, let me know. You are the man.
That is great. Yeah, I the very first time that I heard that, I was like, Wow, like he totally captured those original songs without doing anything that would cause some kind of copyright issue. Like JM is the
Oh
man.
yeah.
He
And
knows
then
he
and then Justin, even though his voice wasn't bad, it was just, cuz I did it right at the beginning when he sang the Bob Seger right in the beginning. And then directly after that, he was like, "Good night. I apologize, Mr. Seeger."
yeah.
Dude, I almost cried at that part. That was probably one of my favorite parts in the story. I was like, cuz that is so me whenever I'm in the car singing. My wife recorded me singing Justin Bieber and put it all over her social media, and
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
I got
That could have killed your writing career.
well, that's why I use a pen name.
There you go. There you go. Do you wanna speak on that? Like Arthur Unk is your pen name. Where did that come from?
Once again, like I told you, I'm a real big fan of dad jokes. So Arthur Unk is really a play on words for author unknown, because I thought to myself, who the hell would ever want to read whatever I write? And so I was like, well, author and Arthur are similar. And I was like, you can't really spin unknown. So I was like, Unk, Arthur. I was like, yeah, that'll work. It's short, simple, to the point. And if anybody goes to look me up or look up author unknown, hey, maybe I'll appear in a search tag or two. So
That is brilliant, actually. Like, wow. I never connected the two. That's brilliant.
well, and also Arthur is kind of like my alter ego. Because if you're when you if you've ever read Stephen King's On Writing, he talks about when he did his experiments as Richard Bachman.
Right, that's when he
And
first came out, right?
well, he wrote as Stephen King, but then he kind of got a little popular, and he wanted to write other things. And so he kind of that's where the dark half kind of came from, because it was when everybody found out that Richard Bachman was really Stephen King, and that kind of gave him the premise about how to write the dark half. And he was so upset when people found out, because he was like, Richard Bachman gave me a voice that I didn't normally have. And it's kind of like opening up a different channel inside your head. The nobody wants to read the works of John, which are which is my real name. And but when I put on the Arthur Unk, I can all of a sudden start turning these intrusive thoughts into stories. I can be this other person. It's a creative outlet. A guitarist will pick up a guitar, a singer will pick up a microphone. I pick up my pen name and then start writing.
I feel like I remember reading an article where, yeah, where Stephen King said, like, my name was known and almost felt like, hey, if I just wrote anything with my name on it, it would be instantly popular. So let me try doing this as a different pen name.
Yeah, it's almost like a validation thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, have you ever written a story under your original name? Does your original name exist tied to any kind of writings?
It does. I've written for my local newspaper, nonfiction stuff. I won a few poetry contests when I was in middle and high school, but in my adult life, Arthur Unk has given me more success than I ever experienced as a child or a teenager.
Okay, all right. Well, then you want to stick with that. Yeah, you want to fix anything that's not broken.
I ain't gonna change it unless there's a paycheck attached to it.
There you go. There you go. Well, so speaking of, we're getting kind of to the tail end of our conversation here. What social media accounts can we find Arthur Unk on? Where can we find Arthur Unk's writings? Where can we find anything else that you've worked on aside from the Grey Rooms?
I have my heaviest presence is on Twitter at Arthur Unk Tweets, and I manage a huge writing group through Twitter through there. The hashtag VSS365. Um, uh, I think last time I ran the analytics on that, our reach was over 26 million people globally. And I sort of sit at the top of the food chain for the hosts for that, because we do like prompt games and stuff. So it's a lot to manage. I do have my own website, arthurunk.com. hasn't been updated in a minute, but you can find all my old works on there. And I'm going to start doing some revisions on that because I got a novella that's almost through editing.
Is this your first novella, or?
Yes, it's my first novella, and it is in. Whenever I'm in editing hell, I'm working on this thing.
that must be a special place that you enjoy, that being in hell, because I mean, editing sounds like a bane, but come on, man, it's getting all of your beautiful works out there. So Arthur, as we wrap up now, do you have any last words that you wanted to share with any of the listeners or anybody else out there?
Absolutely. Follow your hopes and dreams, and one day you too can be like me. Beefcake! I love you, Craig. Inside joke. No one will get it.
Inside jokes are amazing. Not at all. I hate Craig, by the way, but whatever.
Yeah, Craig's a dick. But no,
Craig,
seriously, for anyone out there, if you can put words to a page, do it. And then get it to someone like me, or someone will help you through the editing process. Because I know I hate it, but it is essential. So if you can put words to the page, get that first draft written, get that idea out of your head. And then if you're having trouble shaping it, hand it off to someone else or ask for help. I'm here to help out whoever I can. And I'm sure you know other people in your life that would be willing to help out too, especially if it's something you're passionate about. Get it out of your head, get it on paper, get it in the hands of someone who can help.
And join our Discord, because Arthur Unk is on our Discord and will help you with everything he just said.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us tonight and letting us pick your brain. I appreciate you taking the time to sit with us, Arthur, and I thank you for sharing your world with us here in the Grey Rooms.
Always a pleasure, Brooks.
And as usual, the biggest thank you goes out to our fans and followers who listen daily and spread the good word of Bob. I don't think we need to offer any new warnings on stranger danger or proper hitchhiking etiquette. Your next ride could be your last, though. #stay gray. Take care and enjoy your evening, Arthur.
Good night, everybody.
And good night, folks. Bye.
Join us each week after every episode for another edition of Behind the Door.